Hey, Sherry, how are you?
I'm fine. It seems like I haven't seen you in forever.
It's been a couple weeks, hasn't it? Because I was off last week. I was
Yes.
I was working, but yeah, good to see you.
But listen, I tried to hold it down in your absence, so I think we did pretty well.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad. Awesome. Well, welcome everyone to Tough Talk 911. I'm Jen.
And I'm Sherry.
And this is where we talk about
what you don't want to talk about because it's an emergency.
awesome.
Jen, look, we keep doing our own little version of that, but it all works, doesn't it?
I guess so. I screwed it up, I think, but yeah.
They get the gist by now. Hey, everybody. Listen, I'm so happy that we are back together again. Jen, I am actually coming live to you from the ATL.
That's awesome. My life is going away. Hold on.
And Jen has a actual stage malfunction right now. You guys know Jen is reporting live from Hawaii. Yes, where that is actually that Hawaii wind that's blowing back and forth. But we definitely are so happy to be back with you guys. And we are going to talk about today a little sticky subject that I know maybe a lot of people don't want to talk about. Of course, they never do. That's why we call this Tough Talk, because we say what you don't want to say. So, Jen, we're going to dive into the step parent conversation.
Yeah,
step parent, or
there's good and bad, yeah?
Yes, step parent or step bully.
Or step child, step tool.
Exactly.
There's two sides to that coin.
It definitely is. Let me go ahead and put on these glasses so we can get started. So, you want to dive in today?
Well, I guess I can talk a little bit from some experience here.
Okay.
And being actually a stepchild and a step parent.
Oh
wow. I've been both. And I think that I feel like I've been very fortunate because I've heard, you see things where people aren't nice to each other, step parents aren't nice to the children, and children can. I have some experience with the children not being so nice to me.
Oh, wow.
Starting out, it all worked out in the end, like I knew it would. But as a stepchild, I was very fortunate because my stepfather treated me like his own. He took wonderful care of me, and I never felt like a stepchild. So that's always what ultimately you want, is to not feel like a stepchild. But something I just wanted to throw out, a little bit of demographics here.
Okay.
This was in 2011 that this was actual fact here.
Okay.
But it said 4 in 10 American families actually have a step relative.
Wow.
One step relative. So whether that's a step parent or a stepchild, it could be any version of that, but 4 in 10.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Pretty significant. And
it's almost half.
It's probably more than that because they only asked married people, right? But
okay.
Right. So when you think about that, people maybe that weren't married at the time that have had those kinds of relationships as well. So that's a pretty good amount of people that are experiencing this in some way, shape, or form.
Right. When I began to look at this topic, one thing that I was shocked that came up, but I wasn't alarmed. But it shocked me a little bit. They were saying in this article that I read that there's a lot of jealousy that takes place in that step parenting, stepchild dynamic, especially if the step parent is loved more than the real parent. Or the, on either side, either from the mother's side or the father's side. And so I want to kind of dive into that dynamic a little bit today, because if a parent is not secure in who they are, and then their child is kind of leaning more towards that step parent, in that, that new relationship, that new family dynamic, it could really isolate. It could really mentally isolate someone.
Yeah, and it is a level of security, right? Because that sort of thing, sometimes children will withhold love from a step parent to not hurt their other parents' feelings. They don't feel like they're being replaced. That's a thing. And they will give you a hard time, not really because they don't like you, but because they are like, you're not my mom kind of thing. And I've experienced that. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing for sure. Absolutely.
When I began to look at some of the do's and the don'ts for step parents, that was one that came up. That Jen is fine. But listen, that is something that came up. They said that as a step parent, be prepared to hear, you are not my real mom, or you are not my real dad. They said, be prepared to hear that, because that is actually going to come out of a child's mouth, especially when you get to the point that you might start trying to discipline them.
Right. Absolutely. Well, that happened to me early on.
Oh, really? Okay. But how about this dynamic right here? How about when the child can't stand the step parent, or the step parent dislikes the child?
Yeah, well, I haven't experienced that. So, I mean, I will say this, at the beginning with my husband and one of his children, his younger son, there was a lot of pushback at the time, but being the adult, I realized what it was about. It wasn't that he didn't like me. It was just that when kids are small, they have this idea that they want their parents to be together no matter what, right? So here, and when kids sense that, this is serious. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is going someplace, because kids are like, crazy as it sounds, but kids can be like pets sometimes, when like, when your dog senses an earthquake before it comes, and they start freaking out, like they sense things. Children sense things. So they know like, this is getting serious. And like, now my parents aren't going to ever get back together because of this person. Right. And so they start acting out and all of those things. And that actually happened with my relationship with my husband. And we broke up for a little while. Ooh. Because of
it was
this dynamic. Right. We were great together, but because of the dynamic between our children, his children, me, and my children, and him, like this whole blended family thing, it's very, very challenging. Hop in the comments if you are part of a blended family or have been part of a blended family at any point, because it's really challenging.
And it's a very sensitive area as well. And, especially it depends on when this happens in a child's life. So if you come in a child's life when they're very, very small, okay, they're going to kind of grow up in the relationship with that parent. Right. But if you come into the relationship and they're already of age, that could really be a challenging space. It could really be a challenging space. But even I want to speak to the point of coming into a child's life and they're very young. That is a very sensitive area as well, because how you raise that child, especially coming from a stance of being a step parent, you're going to be challenged a lot more as that child grows up. So let me explain what I mean. If you didn't raise that child right, or if you did things to that child that has given them a lasting memory of not being something that's pleasant in their life, or something that scarred them in their life, or a very hurtful memory that they carry into their teenage years and their adult years, first of all, they're already going to be mad at you for that, putting them in that space. Okay. But they're going to be doubly mad at you because you are a step parent and you put them in that space. And not only will they possibly be mad at the step parent, they will possibly be mad at the other parent for allowing them to be harmed in that situation. And I'm talking mentally now. And it might be some situations where it's physical as well. But the point I'm making that these are very sensitive dynamics, no matter what age you come into somebody's life.
Well, the thing is that you just have to be a good person and not be like, and sadly, there are people out there that are just not good people. And so step parent or not, whether they were your real parent or your step parent, they're probably jerks to everybody. Like, I get that. That hasn't ever been my experience. And I feel like I said, I feel very fortunate. I had stepdaughters. My first marriage, I was a step parent. And my stepdaughters were, I think like 4 and 8 or something like that. They were very young. And I raised those girls, and I have some stuff to say about, raising children that are not your own. And then, the relationship falls apart, and what that feels like on the end of the step parent who I have no ties to these children anymore. And so I now experience, the parent, their dad saying, she's not your mom. You don't owe her anything. You don't have to have a relationship with her. And if you do, I'm not going to talk to you. Yeah. So, I've experienced that, to where I raised children and then lost them at the end. You know what I mean? Like, as adults. And those are crushing. That's awful. That's an awful feeling, to feel like, that you've invested this time in these children and raised them. And you're not their mom. And so they can just toss you aside if they want to.
And that's why I said that, this area or this situation, these scenarios that we're talking about, they're very sensitive. The step parent conversation is very sensitive because there's so many different areas that you have to tread very lightly. You have to tread. And when I talk about step parent, I'm not just, and I want to say this for the audience, I'm not talking about people who are married. Sometimes you're put in situations where there might be an unmarried couple. And somebody's moving into the house, and now you have this person that is present in a child's life, and they're raising this child, and there's no consummation of a union, through marriage. So we have to look at all of these dynamics, because especially when these children are very young, it plays a part in how they are raised. It plays a part in them trying to understand who they are. And God forbid, like I said before, they're raised in a situation or within a family or with a step parent that is corrupt, or like I said before, you might have a step parent that has their mind straight and in order, and they're in a relationship, with their other, their significant other. And then you have the natural parent on the outside who's jealous. So every time the kids are with the real parent, the real mother, the real father, they could be in a situation where they're constantly being questioned. Well, what are y'all doing in there? Well, how are they treating? All of these questions, and they can't just enjoy that time with the real parent, when they have that visitation, and it's a constant questioning session, trying to find some information. So what we're talking about today, and if we really begin to dive in here, we really begin to be truthful with this conversation today. It is sensitive in every last person that we talk about, every last scenario that we're talking about, whether it be with the child, whether it be with the real parent, whether it be with the step parent. If these situations are not handled delicately, and if they're not really handled in a mature way, it could be disastrous. And it has turned out to be disastrous, because I know plenty adult age people now who have experienced trauma from dealing with these step parent, co-parent other parent, not my parent, but trying to tell me what to do situations, you know. And it does affect people when they become of older age, because they're still trying to figure out, who am I? Because what I remember as my roots are dealing with somebody who I knew really didn't care for me, or dealing with somebody who did care for me, but my real parent drove me crazy because of their own insecurities.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, fortunately, that hasn't ever been my experience, other than the, digging their heels in when they're young and they don't want, you're not my mom and you can't tell me what to do kind of stuff. I remember that, having that situation with my husband's child that was 9 at the time. And I was just babysitting. I was just watching him after school. And I was like, you need to do your homework before you go outside to play. You're supposed to read. And he went outside and he was playing, and I was trying to get him in the house, and he just threw a fit and was yelling in the street, "You're not my mom," got his mom on the phone, and was like, this whole scenes.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Temper tantrums, and we would have these huge scenes. And, I'd go over and hang out at the house, and he would throw a fit. And, I'd be watching movies with his dad, and he would throw these temper tantrums to the point where I had to go home. It was that bad. I had to go home.
You saying that it's something else just popped in my mind. And what just popped in my mind is scenarios where the parent of the child, when they want to be in a new relationship and they want to act like this is their new family, and they try to eliminate the relationship that child has with their natural parent. They purposely try to sabotage it because they want this family unit that they're creating. And it's like they want to forget about their past, and they want their child to forget about their past too. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like you try to act like that.
I do, but I can't speak to that.
No, it's not for you though, because somebody could be listening to us that's experiencing this. And that's why I'm trying to bring out all of these different scenarios, because that's another situation. That I'm sure that somebody may be watching that is experiencing that as we're speaking right now. That when you move into a new relationship and you have children, you cannot act like your previous life never existed. You have to include that other parent that you had a previous relationship with. Okay.
Absolutely. But the thing is that when relationships are new, and relationships are freshly broken up, that's challenging. And it's because, they're in that space to where they're still trying to not be angry with the other parent, right? So there's a lot of that. And I know that we dealt with those dynamics at the beginning. And it wasn't like, oh, this person doesn't exist. And there was no, there's a lot of parents that will badmouth the other parent. I know, right? And so I've been the victim sadly, of that, being badmouthed to my children even. But they will badmouth the ex to the new person, right? And I experienced that with my first husband, where he just badmouthed the ex-wife. You know what I mean? And that's not something ever that you should do, because it's not right to do that to your child's parent, period.
I just saw a comment, Jen. It says you have to see the child as your own. I want to talk about this comment for a minute. You have to see the child as your own. Let me just talk about just social media. What if you're in a situation with a family and there is a stepchild, and there's a child with the parent and the step parent, and there's a child from those two, right? So you have you have a child that's with the, let's just say the father. The father, let's just say the father has a child, and he's not with the mother anymore of that child. He's newly married in his new relationship, and him and his new wife have a child together. Okay? What if that mother never posts the father's child, but will only post her child in pictures? What's your thoughts? She acts like this other child doesn't even exist, and will only post pictures with that child that they have together.
That's petty. That's what I think. That's petty. I mean, that child exists. I mean, the only way that would ever be a thing is perhaps that child is like not, maybe they exist in life, but maybe they're not present. You know what I mean? So if the child isn't present for them to take photos together and post pictures of, then that's reasonable. And I understand that you're going to post pictures of people who are present in your life.
So let's say with the scenario, if the child is present, say for instance, it's 3 children, and all of the children, but you just posted together. They live together.
Okay.
What about that scenario?
There's nothing more to say about that.
Now let me talk about that, because I know a scenario right now that's happening. I know a scenario where that's happening, whereas they won't post the stepchildren, but they'll just post the children that they have with the person that they're with now.
Right.
And they're all in the same household. So this is what I want to talk about with that, though. The damage that may not be seen right now with the children, with the child or the children, but how this could affect them later on. You know, when it's time, because we know now kids today, they don't have photo albums and all of that like we used to have. Their photo album is social media now. Their photo album is memories that come up. So if these children never have memories that they were included, and they only see memories with the children that are with that, you know, the new relationship.
Right.
That's what I was talking about earlier. That's what I was talking about, how this could be damaging. This could be damaging to someone later on in life and looking back, because now they begin to question, was I ever loved? Did someone ever love me? Did someone ever want me? And that's why I'm telling whoever's watching this at this time, because I'm sure someone may watch this in playback, you got to be careful with your choices in scenarios like this and situations like this, because you're making a lot of times people are making choices from selfishness, because they're making the decision on how they feel and what makes them feel good. And you can't do that when you're in these step-parent, step-children relationships. You have to make the decision for the whole and what's going to be best, especially for these children later on.
You always have to do what you believe is best for the children. I mean, that's your job as a parent. So, you know, people make mistakes and whatever, but that's never anything that you should be doing. That a child should never be excluded, you know, from things like that. And so, you know, like I said, I'm sure there's situations where it makes sense that that's what's happened. Maybe they don't live together, and, you know, that's just the kid exists, but they don't spend time together. They don't visit or whatever. But if they're in the same household, they're living in the same household together, you know, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable behavior. And yeah, that's damaging. It's damaging.
And like the comment just said, you got to have an open mind. You got to have an open mind and realize that every choice and every decision that you're making, it does have an effect. You got to watch everything that you do, because these kids are looking, these kids are watching. And that's why, you know, earlier I threw out all these different scenarios, because yes, people may think when the children are really, really small and really, really young, oh, they don't understand what we're doing. They don't see. Yes, they do see. They do see, they do understand, and they do feel. And they take those feelings and they take that understanding of you know, being torn between parents. That's another one. When you're feeling torn, you know, between a step parent and a real, you know, and a natural parent. that part of what if I act like I like my step parent too much, my mother's going to get upset, or if I act like I like my stepfather too much, my father might get upset. That's a lot of pressure for a child. That's a lot of pressure for an adult to be in.
Well, these family dynamics in general, like being a parent in general, is hard work. Being a step parent, having stepchildren, being a stepchild, these are all, there are so many situations to where, maybe you're walking on eggshells. But I will say this, is that when people are good people, and generally speaking, I think that most people are, but they are going to accept you as their own. I think that there are a lot more people that the dynamic is healthy than the dynamic being really traumatizing. And
I disagree. I actually think it's opposite. I think they're more traumatizing situations. I'm gonna tell you, I really do. I'm gonna tell you my own life, and I just can tell you from my own perspective and what I've experienced. All these step parent, step children situations that I have witnessed, they've been a mess. I don't know of any successful step parent, stepchild situation that I can remember and that I know of that was facilitated in a correct manner. And I'm telling you, and I've seen quite a bit. And I'm just, as we've been talking and going through just our little session today with Tough Talk, I've really been pondering a very pleasant scenario, and I don't know of any. And I say I don't know of any because it's somebody in that dynamic. Either it might be a parent that didn't want the child, or act like they did not have a child, or it was a step parent that was trying their best and wasn't accepted. I mean, it can go on and on and on. But we do have a question, Jen.
Yeah.
Who should be the disciplinarian in a stepchild's life?
I believe their real parent should be the disciplinarian. But this is the other thing, is that me as the step parent, there are certain things that I have to stand up for myself, right? In cases of a child speaking to me in a certain manner. And these are just things that I would do with anyone. Okay. There are certain things that I would be like, you cannot speak to me that way. That's unacceptable. And so I would say that and stand up for myself. But ultimately, as far as I'm concerned, his father, right, is ultimately has to be the disciplinarian. That's not my child. That's not my place to discipline them. Okay, so that's how I work. I would talk to the father, I'd talk to his dad and be like, hey, this is what's happened. That's up to you, what you want to do. Okay.
I was in my situation that I was in. I had the father who had a problem with the daughter, and the daughter that had a problem with the father, and then I was constantly caught in the middle. Just
I've
being
come to the rescue of my stepchildren before too.
Yeah, I mean, just being pulled, and and then finally, balancing things out, and then it starts again. I mean, that was so draining. Of course, that's a scenario that I was telling you about that I'm finally, freed from. But it was so draining. It was so draining, having to be in the middle of, just these constant battles between the two. And so that's what I'm saying with these step parent, stepchild relationships. It's so sensitive. It's so sensitive. I see we got a lot. Let me see.
So for me, like, I feel like this. It does add another dynamic, but in all of the cases, like being a stepdaughter, like, it was all positive. I mean, if they don't get me wrong, it's not perfect and I think raising children, period, isn't. It's hard, whether you're a step parent or not. whether you have stepchildren, whether you're a stepchild or not, being a kid and getting raised by people who are just learning what the hell they're doing and they're practicing on you is hard, no matter how you slice it, right?
When you said that, like, listen, you said that we are the test people, huh? Because we're practicing.
Like the oldest kid. I don't know about you, but I'm the oldest.
So they're practicing on us. Lord have mercy.
I'm like the test dummy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I know. So
they
listen,
don't know what the hell they're doing.
I
don't know what they're doing.
I did do some more research, and so we do have some little some do's and don'ts. So I want to, because our time goes so fast. So let me just hit some do's and don'ts that parents should or should not do. Okay. First of all, they can't come on too strong, and I think we kind of hit on that earlier, that you can't come on too strong, and that's the thing, trying to find a balance. Because you're not the parent, so you can't kind of come in when we're talking about the discipline piece. So you can't come in and try to discipline and act like you are. But at the same time, you can't be too weak either. And so people will ask, well, where's the middle? I don't know where the middle is, but I'm just telling you, you can't come on too strong.
I know where the middle is. Speak up for yourself and let their parents discipline them. That's the middle.
Yes, but do remember, you cannot come on too strong. Even to taking a stance like that, you just can't. You got to know how to balance that. The next one was you got to get on the same page with the parent and the ex. Now, that's what we were talking about earlier. We didn't bring in the X piece, okay? But you all have to be on the same page, and that's the challenge, because you might have a
happen though, because that's our family.
No, it can happen, but I'm talking about for the most part, and I'm telling you from all the situations I know, I don't know of any that got on the same page, because there was always a fool in there that couldn't communicate, or they communicated like they were on an elementary school level. Okay, this is where everybody has to be mature. But it's challenging. When those emotions come in and get into that, it gets very challenging. Okay, but you got to get on the same page. Everybody, the parent, the child, and the ex, got to get on the same page for the sake of the child. Okay. The next thing, as a step parent, you need to encourage the child to have one-on-one time with their natural parent. So you should be encouraging of that and assisting them in doing that. To make sure they're keeping that communication up and spending that time with the natural parent. Okay. And this is something I never thought about this. They say you should have weekly meetings, family meetings.
Yeah, I think interesting. If you are actually really raising the kids, for sure, there should be discussions about what's happening in the homes, in each home, right? Because if you're doing this shared parenting blended family, it's really good to do that, so that nothing's a surprise. And for the most part, it was like that. It's been like that this second time around. The first time I was a step parent, not so much, just because mom initially was kind of MIA. But once she was back in the picture, that was something that, not family meetings, weekly family meetings, but definitely included that parent.
Mm-hmm.
And I included this parent after my marriage went kaput, actually. And I actually kept the kids. Like, the kids stayed with me after my first marriage went kaput. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to stay with their dad. They stayed with me, their stepmother. There's all kinds of different crazy scenarios.
Another do or don't, it says don't overstep your bounds. And I think we kind of touched on that earlier. Don't overstep your bounds. Kind of know what your place is in that dynamic. And we talked about the one that says, be ready to hear, you are not my real mother. You are not my real father. We definitely talked about that one. They said, don't take it personally. I don't see how you can't take it personally, but this is the advice. Don't take what's happening personally. Me, once again, I don't see how you cannot take it personally, because these are real feelings and these are real situations.
And realize it. That it is what it is. You know, I the second time around, I didn't take it personally when he yelled at me and said, "I'm not your mother," and you know, whatever, because I'd been through it before, and I knew that he was just acting out because he's a child, and here's this new person coming into his life that isn't his mom. And so that's what kids do. And I think it's easier to not take it personally if you've kind of like walked that line before. But you know, the thing is that kids will come around. You know, you just be who you are. Don't be pushy. Like, don't overstep, and let them do them, and they will come around eventually. And this child, this one that gave me a hard time, he's 20 years old, and we are so close. Like, I love this kid. And he years later said, "I am so sorry that I acted that way and I treated you that way. It was so ridiculous," you know. So eventually, like I knew would happen.
And that's what I said.
And he did the things that I needed to do as the grown up, that he would come around eventually.
And that's the point that I was making earlier, because if you had not taken that stance, and you may have operated from an immature mindset as an adult, now what you're talking about is how he was like, "Please forgive me. I'm sorry how I treated you. I know you didn't deserve that." It could be just the opposite. No, you are an asshole in my life, and I want nothing to do with you for the rest of my life. I mean, really, it could be the opposite. So that's what I'm saying. All of this is it's a very sensitive area. But one last do or don't was, they said you should please do make time for your stepchild. So that means having that one-on-one time. And that's so important, because now what you're doing is you're building a relationship. But it has to be healthy time. Not just, you know, taking them out and not, you know, talking to them or saying anything. "I'm taking you to the store. We're not going to have a conversation at all in the car." You know, that's not what we're talking about. Spending healthy time, conversation, building them, you know, and that's what's going to help.
Time just for them. Like, I did that with my stepchildren. And we would like go places together, and we'd listen to music that his dad like didn't necessarily like or whatever, but I liked it, and I'd be like, "Oh, this will be our little secret," you know.
and that's what we're talking about. That kind of time right there. That healthy experience. Well, Jen, we have come to another ending of Tough Talk 911.
Well, you know, I have to say that I know that everybody has different experiences when it comes to these step relative relationships that we were talking about. And I feel very, very blessed. And they were not, you know, all rosy. There were some thorns in there. And so there were some situations that were maybe not perfect or great. But all in all, I've been blessed to have had a great relationship as a stepchild, and very healthy relationships. There were some bumps along the way, but ultimately very healthy relationships as a step parent as well. And I hope that there were some lessons learned here today, that if you're not in the ideal situation, that you have learned, and maybe there can be a shift in, maybe you're the step parent and there's some stuff going on and whatever, or maybe you're a stepchild and there can be some understanding of what your step parent is going through. Hopefully there were some lessons learned today that can help you in the future.
And if they don't get anything from today's tough talk, I hope that they get that every choice that you make is going to impact a child in some type of way. And if it's for the good, like you said, later on in life, you'll have good memories. But if you're doing things right now that's challenging and it's really not in the best interest of the child, you will pay for that later on because you do reap what you sow.
And hey, let's not get it twisted. Adult children can be awful to step parents as well. Okay, so
Yeah.
I also have a relationship, and I'm not awful to my mother's husband, which is what I call him. But I was a teenager and almost out of the house when my mom married him. And so the thing is that I don't see him as my stepfather. I mean, technically he is, and I like him well enough. He's a very nice man, but we have not created that connection. But I do know that there are people that are horrible to their step parents just because. And if you're an adult child that is awful to your step parent just because, knock it off. Just saying.
But you know what, Jen, like I said, and I say this all the time, even if they don't knock it off, life has a way of straightening out every crooked place and making it straight again. So either we can surrender to it and do it ourselves and make life what we need it to be for ourselves. But what I have seen over and over and over again in life is when you don't make it right and you don't surrender to that lesson that needs to be learned,
karma will.
Karma will. And life has something for you later on down the line, and you would have wished you had. And that's why I'm telling you all the time, in every scenario and situation I've been in my life, when I know I've been mistreated, I just sit back and I just wait. I have learned to have the patience of Job. And I don't care what the scenario looks like right now. I already know that if you done wrong, you behaved wrong, you acted wrong, you did wrong, I just sit back and wait. And it's not that I'm wanting something to happen to you. I don't want any bad to happen to anybody. But I know this is how life works. I figured it out a long time ago in my own life. I figured it out. And what I'm saying to you is you just haven't figured out life yet. You haven't figured it out. You don't understand that life has a power within itself, baby. Mother Nature does not play. And if Mother Nature doesn't get you, Father Time will. Believe that.
Awesome. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. As always, Sherry, it was a pleasure. And we're taking a break next week. Am I right?
Mother's Day, and happy Mother's Day, Jen.
Oh, thank you. I gotta say, this Mother's Day is gonna be a little bit rough for me. Losing my child last November. This is gonna be my first Mother's Day without, the actual child that would call me on Mother's Day and take me out on Mother's Day. So yeah, this is going to be a little challenging, but I'm going to get through it.
You know that in this space that you have a community of people that love you in social media world. And I'm sure where you are right now, and I know you have a loving husband who's going to make that day very special for you, that even though I know as a mother, you will still feel, because I know you and I talk all the time, to trying to just accepting what is. And sometimes that's the part, digesting what is. But at the same time, I know you have a world of support surrounding you that during those hard times and those sensitive times, we're just a phone call or a hug away.
I know. And I feel very blessed to have had the years that I had. I got to celebrate 30 wonderful Mother's Days with this child. And what a blessing that was. So Thank you so much. And we will see you, I guess, in a couple of weeks. Okay.
Yes, you guys, what we're going to start doing is we're going to actually start giving you our schedule ahead of time, because I know for the last couple of weeks, Jen and I were kind of in and out because life just happens. You listen, we still have a life now. And we both have busy lives. So what we're going to try to do is start actually posting a schedule, and we're going to try to keep them going. So when Jen can't, I'm going to still try to come on just like I did last week. And when I can't, Jen's still going to post right on my page and through our Tough Talk pages. And so we can keep Tough Talk in place. But next week, we both are taking a break. Why? Because we deserve it, because it's Mother's Day.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Appreciate you for joining us. And we hope to see you back here in, count them, 2 weeks. Okay.
2 and 2.
All right. Aloha.
Aloha. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.